Salve discipuli. Welcome to Ecce's 19 through 21, the perfect tense verb. Let's start with the characteristics of the verb. Like nouns, verbs have distinct characteristics that apply to all verbs. We've covered these before, but let's review them one more time. First off, we have the conjugation, the group to which the verb belongs. First, second, third, third-io, fourth. Second is the mood, indicative, imperative, or subjunctive. We are currently in the indicative mood. We know the imperative mood, and we will learn the subjunctive in Latin 3. Voice. Verbs come in two voices, active and passive. Currently, we're working in the active voice. We learn the passive voice in Latin 2. Number, singular and plural. Tense. There are 6 total tenses in Latin. Currently, we know the present and imperfect, and this lesson will deal with the perfect tense. And of course, the person, the endings of the verbs, the first, second, and third person, which we'll review later in this video. Let's talk about a time-limited tense so that you better understand what we're dealing with. Latin uses a variety of past tenses, so we want to understand where these fall in the timeline. Currently, we are at the present tense. That is the here and the now, present tense. We learned the imperfect tense, which is continuing past action, meaning an action that starts in the past and moves forward towards the present. The new tense we're learning is the perfect tense, which is a completed or a finished action in the past. So it is started and completed before we reach the present time. Let's talk about perfect personal endings. The personal ending that you are familiar with do not apply to the perfect tense. Okay? However, the new endings represent the same as the old. Personal endings determine whether the subject is first, second, or third person, singular or plural. A first-person speaker is I or we in the plural. Second-person speaker is you or you all in the plural. And third-person speaker may be a noun or he, she, or it, or they as pronouns. So what do the endings mean? Let's review. The personal endings of the perfect tense represent the personal pronouns, making it possible for a single verb to complete a complete sentence. So here we have it. These are your personal endings. We have I did, isti, you did, it, he, she, it did, imus, we did, istis, you all did, and erunt, they did. Now, did is only one of the ways you can translate a past tense verb, but we'll talk about translating those later. So every verb has 4 principal parts. Like here, duco, ducere, duxi, ductus. The first principal part, duco. The second principal part, ducere. The third principal part, duxi. And the fourth principal part, ductus. The present tense. The first principal part is the present tense in the first person. I am leading. The second, of course, is the infinitive, which we know. The perfect tense is the third principal part. The perfect tense, first person. The perfect passive participle is an adjective made from the verb, having been led, but we don't really use that until Latin 2. You've been using the first 2 principal parts for a long time, so now we're going to add that third principal part. So how do we find the stem to add those endings that we saw earlier? The perfect stem is found in the third principal part of the verb. Mitto, mittere, missi, missus. The missi is the third principal part of the verb. By removing the I from the principal part, you find the stem, miss. So then you add the ending, like misserunt. This is why it is important to memorize all the principal parts of the verb. So let's talk about the stem with the endings. Just like we do in the present tense, we take that stem and we add the endings to create the verb. So here's what that looks like. We've taken the stem that we got from the third principal part, miss, and added the E. So missy is I sent. Miss Isti is you sent. Miss it is she sent or he sent. It could be either. Missimus, we sent. Miss Istis, you all sent. And misserunt, they sent. So here you can see the verb created in its conjugated form. So what about the perfect tense sign? You know that in the imperfect tense, the BA tells us that we're dealing with the imperfect tense. However, in the perfect tense, there is no standard sign. That's why it's important to memorize those four principal parts. But there are specific letters that tend to be used. The V, the S, the U, or the X. So like misawit, muttered, usit, ordered, gemuit, groaned, and duxit, led. So here you can see each one of those used in a specific verb type. However, we also have perfect tense verbs that are recognized by a lengthened vowel, like the word adwinio or adwinit in the present. Notice the lengthened E in the perfect tense. This is the tense sign. This tells us that we're dealing with arrived, not arrives. Or a vowel change, like ago. Agit, he drives, becomes egit, he drove. The change in vowel is an indication of the tense. Again, it's easiest to recognize this by learning the principal parts of the verb. However, it's important to note that there are some words, like reprehended, which do not change their stem from the present to the perfect tense. In that case, you have to pay attention to the context in which the word is working in to know the tense of the verb. So here are some words that I want you to practice with. Take these words, look at the principal parts. Hopefully you remember which principal part that is, and tell me the stem. That's it. Just make the stem. That's all you have to do. Buon latte!